Hey guys, Roxy50 Angel, otherwise known as Rose, and I'm going to be reading a story that I'm still in the process of writing. It's not very good, but I do have to warn you, there are going to be a lot of trigger warnings, because this is not a happy book. Don't judge me based on this book. It's called Desperation, and it's not a happy book. By all means, if you get triggered easily, or even not easily, do not read this book because it has many mentions of things. The first 5 chapters, of which I've already written, aren't that bad. There are probably 2 mentions of sex, but the word isn't exactly used and it's not overly clear. But later on there's also murder and things like that. But later on in the book, it gets much worse and it involves topics like rape and suicide. It does mention self-harm, so if you get triggered by that, please click away now. And this is more social commentary and kind of just something sad that I'm writing. It is no way meant to harm any of you, and if you do not like this, please do not listen or read it. I do not want anyone feeling bad because I've written this. This is something that I wouldn't recommend to people. It is very, very, very rough draft at the moment, and I'm still writing it and the concepts are still going through my head, and it's based on a dystopia. Let me put this, and it's not based on any of my experiences or any of the people that I know experience. It's more just a general commentary, okay? So please, please be careful if you want to go on and read this book for yourself, or if you're going to listen to my reading of it. That's the warning there, okay? Now, this is Desperation by me. Okay. I held my hand out. I shivered as my skin hit the cold surface of the door handle. I could feel the ice beneath my fingers as I turned my wrist to open the door. The darkness of my house was flooded with the dim lighting of the outside world. I could now see the old oak door I had just opened. I looked at the rust on the frozen metal handle. I frowned as I stepped into the cold wind. I looked at the old cobblestone path that led to my destination. I sighed, my breath turning to mist as I did so. I closed the door and locked it with the oversized black key in my hand. I kept my eyes to my feet as I slowly walked to the dreaded school. I counted every detail on the uneven path. I noticed how the dry grass peeked through the cracks of the road and how the frost glazed every stone. I listened to the click every time my shoe hit the ground. I listened to the wind howling through the overabundance of trees. I felt the small amount of sun touch my skin. I felt the gentle breeze freeze my bones. I observed the world around me with caution. In this town, any moment could be your last. I found myself at the school in an annoyingly short amount of time. I looked at the looming gates. Chills ran down my spine. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. I looked at what can only be described as a pit of human desperation. I frowned at the sunken faces of my peers. We were all the same, pale, thin, and lost. Some of the students ran towards me. I put my hand over the gun hidden in my school dress, ready for a fight. They backed away when they noticed my weaponry. I smirked at their cowardice. Time for another year. I was handed a worn book by a cruel-looking teacher. I opened it to see my schedule and some faded writing. I looked at my first class, math. I wandered to my locker and opened it to see my books still there. I grabbed my maths workbook and my maths textbook. I also quickly grabbed my spare dagger and extra ammo. I slid the dagger into my boot and hid the ammo in my utility belt. I heard footsteps behind me. From the sound, I could tell the person was 79 kilograms and 162 centimeters tall. They had a weapon in their boots, a knife. They were female. Milroy. Hey, Milroy, I smirked. I turned around to see my prediction was correct. I placed a hand on my gun. No funny business. You don't want to end up like the others, I sighed in a monotone voice. Her eyes flashed with fear, but it was quickly replaced with anger. She stormed off. I looked at the clock. 5:30 a.m. Shit, I'm late. I picked up my pace and jogged to the classroom. I had memorized this concrete hell, so I got there in good time. Good time was not good enough. I had to duck as a silver blade was thrown at me. I looked up to see an angry and slightly startled teacher. What the fuck? He spat. Miss Eleanor Python, you were late, he growled with enough venom to kill 2 elephants. Sit. Now, he instructed with enough authority in his voice to quieten the murmuring students. As you know, I am Mr. Dragon Phoenix, he smirked. The students were deadly silent. I did not want any interruption in this classroom. Or else, he thundered. The students nodded. That's not meant to be modded. I studied him closely. He was muscular. He had a gun in the back of his pocket of his trench coat. He was in his early 20s and a clear smoker. His greying hair indicated high levels of stress. He had deep blue eyes. They were cold and unforgiving. He was pale, and it seemed he hadn't eaten for days. He had self-harm scars on his wrists due to the amount of effort in his appearance. This was probably the effect of self-consciousness and low self-esteem. I concluded that he'd been hurt in the past, and it has now effects on his behavior. I listened to his voice drone on about maths. I wasn't really paying attention. I was scanning the room for information. My eyes fell on the face of my victim, Brody Victora. I'd spent the last 3 months working to gain his trust. I'm his girlfriend. I don't love him. It's just for the job. I watched him closely. He was a little disheveled. He kept glancing at Hawthorne North. They didn't, did they? I wasn't upset. I was going to murder him anyway. I slid my knife from my boot to my belt. I heard the chilling chime of the bell. I listened to the teacher dismiss the class. I walked up to him with a flirty smirk as the students piled out of the class. Hey, Brody, I whispered. Sup, Elle? He smiled back. I looked around to see the teacher walk out. How about we make use of this classroom? I winked. He nodded slowly. I pulled him in for a kiss. I put my hand on my knife and held it discreetly on my wrist. I slowly raised the hand with the knife to his chin. I held his face, then pushed the knife to my fingertips. I pulled away from the kiss, but still kept close. I whispered sweet nothings into his ear. I then put my fingers on his neck and pushed the knife into the space. I drew back and slit his throat. He grabbed at his neck before falling to the floor. He was dead. The smell of warm blood flooded my senses. I felt the crimson liquid on my hands. I cleaned myself up and left the room. I heard my steps echo through the concrete halls. I felt alive. The thrill of murder kept me sane. That's why I was the top hitman in state 0234. I grabbed my phone as I walked back to my locker. I quickly tapped in the number in the call section. The phone rings 2 times before I hear a raspy voice. 003. I suppose the job is done? It questioned. Yes, I said in my professional monotone voice. Took you long enough. I was starting to get suspicious. The voice laughed cruelly. It struck fear into my heart. I had to gain his trust, sir, I droned. Save it. The tickets will be delivered to you shortly. I have a new target for you, the voice snapped. I am intrigued, I smirk with a small amount of mirth in my voice. Good. They're settled in Segment 5, Section 10. The name is John Felici. He is A1249. That should be enough to set you on track. If you complete this task, you will be rewarded 50,000 tickets, the voice explained. 50,000 tickets? That could get me to middle class. I accept, I said with no hesitation. I must warn you, be careful. This will be your hardest task yet, the voice warned before the call is ended. I looked up to see my locker in front of me. I opened it to lay my eyes on 100 tickets paid for my last job. I quickly grabbed the currency and looked at my schedule for my next class. Science. Anyway, so that is very, very, very mild stuff, and there's noises outside of my house. Never mind, but that's very mild stuff compared to what's going to actually be in the future chapters. But basically it's going to be the story of this girl who actually in the story you will understand is to be 14 years old. So, yeah, a 14-year-old hitman who is going through high school, trying to act normal as she's on this giant task to get out of lower class so she doesn't have to fight for her life every day. And this is where the whole story comes in, and yeah, it's just the emotional trauma that she's going through and the physical pain of actually having to do these stunts and pull off what she has to do while not letting anyone know. Anyway, I thought that would be something to share. If you want to check it out, I will leave the links in the description. If you don't want to, that is perfectly fine, because this is something that I would be very myself going to read. It's not meant to be a happy book, okay? It doesn't have a happy ending. Not many things in life do. So just warning you there, But anyway, if you are intrigued, please do check it out. It would mean so much to me. Anyway, goodbye.